a beautiful thing. It grows to the quiver of a fife that sings. I can take it with the wave of my hand and place it upon my music stand. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing.
Thank you, everyone. Great to be here today. Remembering who we truly are. My talk for today is titled Engaging Your Circle of Atonement. And I had a lot of time to think about this recently because I got an interesting Christmas present this year. On Christmas morning, it was determined that I had tested positive for COVID. And, I had some time really to reflect because I had to spend basically 10 days in isolation in my apartment here in San Francisco. And so, it became an opportunity for me to kind of really think a little bit more deeply about my practice of A Course in Miracles, and also to have a lot of the different forgiveness lessons. So it was really, really interesting. Not that I enjoyed all the experiences of it. I can't say that I did, but ultimately the healing experience is always what we're shooting for. And I do want to give a shout out to my Christmas tree here behind you. The Christmas tree has a little interesting story. I bought my Christmas tree this year a little later, a couple days before Christmas, and it did not have the perfect shape that it usually has. I usually get one that's really, has a really nice shape, or I can kind of clean it up. So I was a little disappointed in my Christmas tree. But the healing became is that as I spent more and more time alone in my room, I really started to like my Christmas tree. And I really, became attached to it. It's funny how that happens. And so everything's of the mind, right? Everything's about perception. And, I really, was just really inspired by the lights and by by the beauty of it all, and the ornaments and all the love that went into, how putting it all together. So miracles abound. So whenever we talk about this circle of atonement, I think it's really important for us to just remind ourselves, what does the Course in Miracles mean when we refer to the atonement? And Course says this: the Holy Spirit, as it refers to the atonement, is really, it's the Holy Spirit's correction for the misbelief that the separation from God has occurred. So in a larger scale, we're asked every day, every moment of every day, to accept the atonement for ourselves. And I just want to congratulate everybody. The fact that we're showing up here today is the acceptance of the atonement. We are all here committed to this healing path, and we know there's many healing paths, but our chosen path, at least one aspect of it, is the Course in Miracles. And we, are not only doing the healing for ourselves, but since we know that all minds are joined, this reverberates throughout the whole entire Christ mind as we come together to heal. The Holy Spirit's answer is always in the form of some form of correction, and we know this. And we know, as I referred to in the meditation, that we often hear in the ego world a lot about memory, and we hear a lot about how to improve your memory, and memory is really important. And of course, memory does serve a really important skill. I'm a teacher by profession, and in one of the essential skills is to help try to develop memory of students so that we can build into higher concepts and higher levels of thinking. So it does have a real practical level. But the Course also tells us that the ego uses our memory to trick us, and it uses our memory as a way of conditioning us into false beliefs. And it's here that these early lessons and the atonement is really necessary. Because what the Course reminds us is that our memory also has the memory of God. Our memory also has the memory of, in our right minds, of who we truly are in our eternal reality. And I think for me, in my practice of A Course in Miracles, I kind of push these kinds of high-minded ideas aside too often. But when you become sick with an illness that for some people is fatal, sometimes you reflect on your ideas, And what I learned a little bit from this whole experience is that it really made me think, it really made me go back and think like, hey, my body's having this experience. Yes, it's kind of like a mental review of that experience. But who do I think I really am? Am I really Reverend Peter, teacher, coach, softball player, Course in Miracles student, so on and so forth, and all that? And yes, I do have my worldly functions, and I do those things, and I try to show up as best I can for them. But I really did remember that I have a divine nature too, and that we all have a divine nature, and that belief was a comfort. And even though my symptoms weren't really super serious, they were still uncomfortable, and they were challenging at times. A Course in Miracles says the sole responsibility of the miracle is to accept the atonement for itself. So every day we try to accept this atonement. In today's reading, which Reverend Vincent read so well, it starts out with this: the only part of your mind that has reality is the part that links you still with God. Would you have all of it transformed into a radiant message of God's love to share with all the lonely ones who have denied him? And here again, we kind of see that the Course is there in telling us that we have this connection, that we have this link. And what we have to do is remember to ask, and we have to remember to heal, and we have to remember to call upon this link. So I want us to all remember that we are part of this atonement process, and that sometimes it's good to just, we're starting out the new year, sometimes it's good just to remind us what we're really doing here. What is our purpose? Our purpose is really to pardon, as the Course says, or to forgive all those unhealed thoughts that we have. Now, what I want to do for today is I want to take this notion of the circle of atonement and maybe expand it in a practical way as a learning device for us all. So what I've done is I've come up a little, I'm going to have to show this, I've come up with a little drawing. My artistic skills are not that great, but what I want to show to you is that in the middle of our mind, our vast mind, I called it the Christ mind. And the Christ mind extends to everything. And I'd like us to consider our healing process as one of kind of concentric circles. So the closest concentric circle to us is how we experience our personal lives or our relationships. And so that's why it's closest to the Christ mind. And then the next layer, or the next sphere, if you will, is the communal mind. That which we experience out in the community. Maybe for some of us that's work, going to the store, driving around, volunteer work that we do, whatever it is as we experience community. And then the last concentric circle is what I call in absentia, or like the public sphere. So that's how we relate to like public institutions, our government, leaders, people that maybe even pop culture, people that we kind of relate to through electronic media or things like that. Now, what you'll notice is that I've used the color of yellow. It's the closest color I could get to golden light. And so that's oftentimes when I think in spiritual, even in the Course, I think we refer to the golden light as kind of like that's the symbol of our oneness, our heaven, of love. And so that's what I'm using here. But if you'll notice in my drawing, I have all these black spots. And so, dark pen, I should say. And I'm using that kind of as the symbol of guilt. The areas of our minds in these different spheres that are unhealed. And so that's kind of the visual that came to me as I was preparing for this talk. So personal, communal, and more public, broader ways of taking a looking at healing. So why I was sick and spending time with myself, I realized, I used to have a real strong meditation practice and kind of like a healing practice where I could calm my mind and go in, and I really felt like healing of things that were bothering me, thoughts, perceptions and things like that. And I did have this experience when I was sick. I guess like my kind of defenses were down, and I started having memories of some things that happened in my life. And so one of the experiences, and things I wasn't real proud about, quite frankly. And so I went into this meditation. I got myself into a meditation, and what I did is, I just imagined all like people in my life who were being with me in this meditation, in this golden light. And so I imagined family members, some of you here that are attending today. I brought you into my kind of like my circle of atonement. And I have a lot of family members now. I'm older, but I as a young person, I lost a lot of family members too early as well. And so I brought them in, and one particular thing came up for me was a healing experience that I had. Or a memory that I had that I wasn't too proud of. When I was growing up, my parents divorced very early. So my biological father I never met till I was older in life. And my stepfather basically raised me, and he was a good man in many ways. But he did have the experience of being an alcoholic. And there was one time when it finally got so bad in my family that he had to leave the home, and he got into Alcoholics Anonymous, and he did have healing from that for some time. So there was a time when he was not living at home and had his own place, and we would have, visitation. So we would go stay with him for the weekend. And I was there one time, I remember, on the weekend. And I had this, unpleasant memory, and the unpleasant memory was that, he was telling me about his AA program, and he was telling me how he got on his knees and prayed at night, and that was part of his program, and this was kind of foreign to me to have this kind of intimate conversation. I think I was 12 or 13 years of age, and I kind of laughed about it. And, it made me uncomfortable. Obviously, looking back now, it made me uncomfortable. So, I had this experience, like, obviously, that I feel really bad about that. And I've been carrying that my whole life. And so I had this experience in the meditation where I just imagined him, and I said, I'm sorry, and I apologized for it. And I don't know, honestly, if this is like pure Course teaching that, I know, and none of this really ever happened. But the fact that that my ego is bringing it up and using it means I have to heal it. So sometimes we have to heal the images of the past. And I experienced the healing about it. And the Holy Spirit guided me today to come and talk about it. And so what I realized is that, I think that I think that there are different ways in which we heal, and all of us. And, some of us may have different practices of how we heal. Some folks, I know a lot of people talk about having direct communication with the Holy Spirit and Jesus, and they get, thoughts and guidance right away. And mine has not always been that way. But I know that I was given the desire to talk and bring talks and just talk about my process. And so, I just have to share that I felt that healing, and that's one of the ways in which I heal is through meditation. And I had lost that for a while, and so it was really a gift of this illness that brought it back to me. Now, the other areas that we're talking about here are, so that's a personal version of healing. But there are other areas too, like I talked about the communal level. So for me, the communal level often takes place at my work. I have a lot of, I work with students that have emotional problems, and so there the mental health. Where I work, there are mental health professionals that are there, and right now there's this experience where the students at our school are kind of rebelling, and they're rebelling against an aspect of the behavioral intervention system that is part of what's supposed to be their healing growth, their healing process. So basically, I don't want to get into great detail with it, but every period that we work on, they have a therapy goal, and they have goals about respect, responsibility, and participation. And some of them are now telling us that they think it's dehumanizing to have this process, and they feel like it's unfair, and they're just creating things, and so on and so forth. Now, what's really funny is that I have I'm a person that has a lot of anti-establishment kind of impulses, but now I'm part, it's the paradox of life, right? I'm part of the establishment, and I'm the senior teacher at the school now. I've been there the longest out of other teachers. And so it has I feel like there are benefits to this system too. But, I have to, the course says, be open-minded, and it makes me nervous because I'll be honest with you, I don't always like change, and it makes me a little nervous. But I know that if I can hear what the students are saying and validate it, and, follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit, I can just do what I can do. And so we're going through a process where we're going to start looking at this system and trying to figure out if there's a way to do it, and if there's a way to do it, if there's a way to do it better, or what it is that we can do. So, I guess what I'm saying is that this atonement process that we're part of is not something that we can always predict. The script is as it is, and what we get to do is we get to choose how we respond to it. Now, the last level that I have been recently challenged about this is what I call the in absentia level. And that's the level of the public and of the public figures or the public institutions. So, I think these are, for me anyway, these are a little bit easier to heal, but nonetheless, they're still present. And, I've recently have had some challenges with this in this area. I've seen how people I love have been treated by the healthcare system. I've seen how this corporate system of healthcare doesn't really value people. I feel like it values profits. And quite frankly, it really pisses me off, really makes me angry. Now, as I say that, there is a judgment, is there not? Right? I'm judging it. So I realize I have to bring it to the Holy Spirit. But I also want to pray for the healing of our consciousness around this. I don't think that like institutions are bad. I mean, institutions are extensions of humans, of people, or corporations are bad. But I do believe that it's an upside down world that we live in. And I believe that, we should be committed to the spiritual and emotional development of humans and not not just focused on the profits of a few. And I can't hold on to that and be healed, but what I can do is that I can state what I believe is a better reality for us all. And I do believe that as we all commit ourselves to a consciousness of connecting to the divine, that all these things that we put, all these idols that we put between us, whether it's racial or LGBTQ or national origin or money or status or power, guys, those are children's toys. It's time to put them away. We are all God. We are all the Christ mind. We're divine, we're eternal. Let's put them away. Let's all engage this year to all levels of healing. And let's heal this together, and let's connect to the mind. And in that way, we're sending it out. It's a ripple that becomes a wave that becomes a tidal wave. And we can bring that healing to all our minds. That's my talk for today.
A flower is a beautiful thing. It grows to the quiver of a fife that sings. I can take it with the wave of my hand and place it upon my music stand. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing. The world is a marvelous show.